space, right?
Yeah, it's somewhere. Hard to see what it is, but it isn't a foundation. This next drawing shows that the two floor plans for the two options that reuse the existing house. The one on the left would be the first option where the courtroom is integrated into the existing space with the addition of a bathroom in the back. And that gives you about 1,200 and some square feet of usable space. The second one is the one that we talked about before, which would add basically a courtroom in the back. So you'd almost double the amount of space in the building. And what the second option does is it gives you the ability to, incorporate some more personnel in here. It also expands the capacity of your courtroom and gives you a new bathroom and an attorney area. So you're almost doubling the size, but what it requires to do that is basically bringing it to the back. And the reason we talked about this one is that you've got an old structure here, and to bring that thing up to code, your biggest issue with the existing structure is that the floor and whatnot isn't really rated for the public loading. So you'd have to do a fair amount of work there. Plus, you've got an old building that's just an old building, so you're going to have heating issues, electrical, all those sorts of things. When you get done, you're still going to have an old building. So thinking of providing a new court space there, it would basically, it's really a halfway between trying to wedge everything into the old house and building a new building. So trying to strike a balance of what would we do, and also getting some more people into this space right now, the people that would use it every day, like the town clerk. The third option would be the new building. It would be a new building which has similar components of what we had when we talked about the original building here. And basically that's a courtroom in the center. You've got the judge in the court over here. You have codes office, bookkeeping, assessor, another office over here probably for the supervisor, whichever, mechanical room, storage, and a break room and a bathroom. This really gives us all the things that we were wanting to accomplish in a space if we were to build new. So this isn't the largest possible thing that we've talked about, but I think this matches up most closely with getting what we need into that square footage for going forward. This would be the Main Street portion of the building. This would be over towards the parking lot. And when we talked about this, we understand the historic nature of Franklin. So this is what we talked about, similar to here being a pole barn type structure. But we could make that structure not look like this, at least on the portion that would face Franklin. Yep. And in the back of your packet, there's a couple things that came in the can back of this first little two sheets here. There's a couple of things in there from Morton Buildings that we just pulled out that give you some different roof lines for the front. There's different things we could do there. But as John and I have been talking about this, we really want to try to put, if this was to be the situation, we'd at least try to put some sort of porch on there with columns, and probably come up with some different fascia on the front that would make it look more like what we have here with the Federal style. So that's not shown on this floor plan, but it would be basically a projection off the front of this with some sort of little roof. I think what we'd like to do is we certainly can take questions tonight, but there's a lot to digest here. What we want to try to do, and not specifically at this meeting, is give these to you and let you think about floor plans and layouts and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. We do know on the existing building that there's a lot of work to do there to bring that up to where it needs to be.
Now, has Mark Jacobs got a hold of you?
Not yet. We wanted to get this stuff squared away to come up with what we thought were some good floor plans.
We talked with Mark Wednesday, Dwight and I did, and he was going to get in touch with you.
Good. We'll give him a jingle now. Yeah. We'll get him a copy of this stuff too.
So he'll be in his office 4 to 6 tomorrow.
Okay.
And I got his home phone number. But he said he wanted to get on board with you.
What we'll do, Jeff, is get him a copy of this packet.
Okay.
So that you can see what we're all thinking about, because he may have some input about, let's do this instead of that.
Yep.
Sort of thing.
Okay, is there any questions for Dave or John?
Some of the issues that existed on the existing house, as I remember as we came through it, was, I'm just trying to get up to speed, because at first we didn't feel that the roof was an issue. Our second trip in, clearly there was an issue with the roof, because we found several spots. The porch, we didn't plan to use it as far as an entranceway, but we wanted to keep it for the
Right.
appearance.
Right.
And we noticed that the porch roofs were leaking, which meant it was coming into the walls of the
Right.
structure,
Yep.
right? Isn't that what
Yep.
some of the
Yep.
concerns we
Yep.
had? The obvious, which we all know happens with an older house, the imperfections of the floor and such not, but with that, the foundation of the existing house looked pretty good, but we found settling in locations that we would have to firm up because of load, for load purposes.
Exactly.
Obviously, because we'd be running more people through than a family.
Yep.
And obviously, the back portion of the house where the kitchen was, that we hope to utilize that space. We knew we were gonna have to do some major renovation because there really is no form of foundation which would hold no maximum weight load whatsoever. And then the issue of the windows for weather heat purposes, correct?
Right.
Isn't that basically the
Sure, that was.
the nutshell of what concerned us
Yep.
our second trip in?
Right, and there's, there's miscellaneous things like there's, soffit work that needs to be done, there's all these little things. The main issue would be the structure itself, of trying to make sure you could have that load. So you go in the basement that's already 5.5, 6 feet tall, now we've got to put beams across there. And to accomplish some of these alternatives, we'd actually be removing bearing walls, which would mean now we've got to go upstairs and put some beams across to support those and then bring those all the way down into the foundation. So there's a bunch of work you have to do to make that space really suitable for the types of loads that you're going to see, which was, again, what drove us towards, I think the compromise option, if we want to try to reuse that space, would be to put the court on the back, because the court would have the heaviest load. So we could probably do a little less load improvement in the existing space if we just had the clerk and whatnot up front. So that, those are some of the things of how we came up with the three options. Obviously, you build a brand new building, everything's new, it's 100% up to code, you know what you're getting into. With an old house, you never quite know, right? You're always going to be working on a few things, but that's what we're working on now. So what we want to do is just give the board the opportunity, and we'll get with Mark to look through these. We'll make some final adjustments, and then we'll start pulling together refine some of the numbers that we've got right now, but without getting the benefit of you having the ability to look through this and say, no, we don't want to do that, we want to do this. We thought that was premature.
Yeah. Now, my question is I know it's hard to judge because we were just looking surface-wise, but I felt, at least my vibe with the idea of going into that was, first of all, saving an old house, but I also felt that cost-effectively we were going to be able to get into it, revamp the house, and yeah, as the years went by, we knew we'd be adding some money.
Right.
But after our second visit, I felt, or I noticed things that I didn't anticipate that I felt were a structural flaw to the existing building.
Right.
Am I wrong to assume that, Dave?
No, I think you're right on it. I think where you're coming, as we've gone through some of our preliminary estimates, the cost per square foot to upgrade that structure is going to be more per square foot than building a building. Where the cost may be less is because you've got less square feet.
Gotcha.
So in the end, the cost may be less, but you're going to put more money per square foot in, and then you're still going to have an old building. That's what we've sort of,
I mean,
come around to.
and I guess that's, thank you, but I mean, I guess kind of was thinking, I know going into it, we thought, oh gee, this is great, we can do this and this and it, and we will be at this level, knowing that in 5 or 10 years, yes, we're gonna add a little bit, but
Sure.
we structurally are very sound. Now, I know the second trip there, we felt, at least I felt,
Right,
oh, I'm way more structurally off the mark than what I thought I was the first trip through.
right,
The water thing was the one that, I guess,
Right.
really stood out, and spending a little more time upstairs looking at the extreme imperfection
Right.
of that one end of the house especially.
All right, another thing to keep in mind on that, Donnie, also is that you're gonna put this money into this house, and you've gotta, to meet energy code, you have to go in, you have to insulate the upstairs and finish off the upstairs for fire code and so on. And that's really not usable space.
Yeah.
unless you spend a lot of money to make it ADA compliant, and you put a lift in to get upstairs, you know, and then you'd have to also put more supports under the floor to carry a load and so on. So you're spending money that you're not gonna be able to use for very much.
Right, which I'm not speaking for, but I mean, I know my look at it was, well, we're not gonna use that space, I don't need to worry about money up there. So,
Right.
obviously, I was not thinking in aspects of a public building, you know, so.
And I think that's what we all run into, is you think like, oh, at my house, you know, or at the farm, I can do this, this, or this. When this is a public building, we don't have that flexibility.
But if you,
And that ends up costing a lot more
but
money
if
than in
you
normal cases.
block off the upstairs, is that gotta be all put up to code if it's not?
It's
not usable
it's a
space?
question that we gotta ask Mark, because we think we're gonna probably impact, well, we think we're gonna hit the 50% rule just to try to make the downstairs right.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're gonna do that, then you gotta take
That's
care
what
of
he
the
was
upstairs.
talking, 50% rule.
What is the 50?
If you go in and upgrade a structure by greater than 50%, then basically you've got to bring the whole thing up to code compliance, which costs you a lot of money. So that's one thing we can review with him as we're talking
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
what Mark
But
was
we
telling
know, and I think that's the key difference here, is we're going to end up with more square footage with either the second or the third option. But we know that's going to equate to more money. But maybe that's where we want to be thinking, is because we're going to end up really with more usable space, dollar per square foot. So.
I mean, I keep thinking about the building that we're in, and it was nice the way Walter did that for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've gone 18 years, but we've spent nothing there, and I know the past few years, probably like any of us with an old house, every 5 years, we're doing something more to sustain it. Nothing's been done there. And in a structure like this, being it's gonna be ours, being it's an older structure, we know we're going to keep adding to it or working on it.
Right.
I'm going to assume, granted, once again, just from the farm, that if it's a new structure, there's always maintenance updates, but clearly probably nothing like we would deal with an old house, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you just end up with unknowns in an old house and things. Things are, when you build a new building, theoretically, it's got a 25, 30-year life where things are going to be good. Sure, there's certain things you got to do that you've got to maintain, but you're already starting out with something new.
Right the first time.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. You're starting off in a better spot of going forward. Plus, your energy efficiency, no matter what you do to an old building, for something that's even close to the equivalent square footage, a new building is going to be a lot tighter. Your O&M.
Which would make us more green.
Exactly. You'd have lower fuel costs. You can do different things there. So.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for going through all this, and we'll get that to Mark, Jeff, and then we'll open to having more discussions with you
Okay.
before
Is
the
that
next
actually,
meeting.
he's in Hamden tomorrow morning, I think, 9 to 11 or something?
Well, if we know he's gonna be
Okay,
here
good.
4 to 6, what we'll
Right.
probably do is John can drop it off on the way home or something.
Yeah. Okay, yep. Okay,
We'll do that, because we'll just get him a packet,
yep, okay,
and then reach out to him. Great,
thank you.
thanks.
But if you want to get a hold of him earlier, all you have to do is call Hamden.
Got it.
Hamden Code Enforcement Officer in the morning, just to let him know, oh, we're going to drop off papers, Mark, let's be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Dave or John? Yes, Jim?
Any consideration for the village co-locating?
They've got, right now, there isn't anything in these plans for a village officer, but there is, I think, space that, I'm not, they've got 2 storage rooms, they've got an office up there in the corner that isn't labeled for anybody.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
Tom, and that's part of what.
And that was talked of.
Yep. So what we're hoping to do, and again, you square off a building, right, and you make up, sometimes you end up with a little extra space. And it looks like, in this situation, we do have a little extra space. Where we may be able to, and that's part of our, back and forth there too, we may make this a little bigger and try to accommodate that or that sort of thing, so. But that's what's in there right now.
The other concern, obviously, and you have expressed some sensitivity to that, and that is, you know, being able to make that look like it actually belongs in the
Right.
neighborhood.
Right.
There's a
So I
couple-
would strongly advocate you draw up
You want
an
to show them these
architectural
pictures more?
lines for contiguous
Which would be
properties
to the backside there.
and do as much as you can to make it look like it belongs.
Sure. If we get to
You
the
can go
village,
that route.
then that's certainly something, we're not gonna plunk a metal building down there and hope that
Tom?
it's good.
Tom,
There's a couple
there's
pictures.
a couple
to pull up.
pictures of what Morton has done.
But it kind of gives you an idea, you have the front facade, you can make a front facade on it. You can actually bring it up and put a parapet wall in front and put some little decoration on it and so on, and make it so it looks
And the next page is another
more
one,
like
Tom.
the village. And then there's another picture on the following page, it has another, but those are just a couple we pulled off real quick just for
Right.
a visual.
I understand that the new building might set back to the parking in front, so therefore the facade would be farther back.
It'd be fur- yeah,
Just
it'd
like
be-
the facade.
It'd be 100 feet back anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah, so it
Versus
would be.
being right on the edge of the
Right,
building. Gotcha.
right.
All right.
So,
Ernie?
Yeah, was there any other sites you explored besides in depth, this much in depth with this site?
This is the only one that we initially started with, and I think it's, I haven't heard of any other. I did, a lady called me about the Slauson House.
Go on the corner of Wakeman, right?
Right, but I got a thing at the county, what parcels are up for taxes, and I didn't see that on it.
Right.
So, it must be the taxes have been paid or whatever on it. And, I mean, that's another thing, you could buy possibly some land that's, going up for taxes. But we haven't looked at anything, but actually this one here, that's what, this is all being put off to 2020.
We originally
We wanted to
were gonna
have,
add on.
That was my next question.
Looked at adding on.
right here.
The original concept was to add on here.
Right.
And the issues that we talked about were, we were gonna add on, but at the end of the day, we're basically gonna impinge on the function of this building, and we were gonna end up with no space here to do anything in the future, in a building that really didn't quite have what we all wanted.
Right.
And you were gonna spend money on something where in the end you're not gonna be happy. So we sort of went down that route and then said, well, what else can we look at? We talked about the existing town property that's down here. We decided that that what we would have to do to build there with access, stormwater, all these things that you'd have to do would add a lot of money for really no value. And then there was some discussion with Chris on a couple sites, and this one popped up, so that's why this one now is we're the third version of trying to site this building, and this one feels good, feels pretty good right now.
Which should also put us in the village, which I felt anyhow, I kind of got the feeling from the community that they kind of wanted very close to the village, if not in the village.
I was just, so like where the chip stone is over here, that wasn't an option?
That was an option.
We looked at that.
That was an option, but the bad part about that is septic would take a third of it, building would take a third of it, and parking would take
the rest
everything
of it.
to the road.
Right.
Yeah, and the other issue is building here is you're impinging on the highway crew's everyday operation.
Right.
They run their plug mill down here, and they have piles of stone, and to be efficient, that would, it would
The other thing that was a question mark,
safety
that,
also.
like, I think especially if you speak with some of the older generation that's been, and some of the older work crew here that's been here, being there, if we did very much excavating, you don't see it now, but water could very well be leaching. That's wet, very wet over there.
Right,
That was a pasture
Right.
forever when there was a farm there because it was so wet. And with the pond being here, I can't help but wonder, as you well know,
Right.
Ernie, there likely is
Oh, yeah.
leaching water going through it, and the build base
Yeah.
that we got here is
Right.
keeping us above that. I can't confirm that,
Right.
but you wander
Oh,
out there,
that's a possibility,
yes, right. So we could wind up where
Right.
we are, which you look at it and you say, no way, but septic, we could wind in with an issue
Yep.
which you know what I'm saying, you know? And that, between that and the highway, that really became a thing that was like, oh,
Right.
we are going to, could run into a problem where we have nothing else to do but remove, and we've
Right.
already invested in what, you know, so.
So the Main Street site, is there any environmental impact as far as anything? Did anybody do that? As far as there anything in the ground from way back when?
There's some fuel tanks up there, and Chris is gonna take those out, so there's nothing left there for the town. That would be,
Well, he was planning, that was part of his initial thoughts, I believe. He was gonna do that anyway.
he's gonna take those out.
Not doing it
to get rid
because,
of them.
You don't need, you don't need DEC permits for that?
I contacted DEC, they're gonna be there. I couldn't do without it.
Yeah, well, I figured you would probably.
It needs to be cleaned up.
right. Brian, another question?
Yeah, in all these three options, that large space is going to be dedicated for the court, and this is going to stay the town hall? Or
At this time, that's where, it's not being changed, but I could see down the road if they need some expansion here for arts room and stuff. But of course, these plans also have the bookkeeper and the assessor moving to the new building.
In the larger.
In the larger plans. So that would, I know there's been talk, they'd like to have an arts room. Well, this one would be awful convenient right into this shop and stuff. And whether the bookkeeping would move up there or not, that's an option. That could be, instead of moving up there, it could stay here and have an office for the village.
Right.
In place of that. So I mean, this is just tentative, just some ideas. I guess the big thing, initially I thought it was a great idea here, but then the town does not work on election day because of the congestion and all that. Well, then you bring this in, it would increase the congestion because your town clerk would be here 2 or 3 days a week. The judge would be here, you never know when he's gonna be around. So it's probably a smart move not having them together, which you look at a lot of other towns, they're not side by side. They're completely different areas, the town buildings and the offices. So I guess there's a reason for it, and that's how it is.
So if you chose to do a completely new building,
Yep.
are you stuck on Morton building, or are you?
No, we're built, initially, Morton gave us a price, which I thought was outrageous.
Was that for a building or just an addition on here?
That was just for the addition on here, which was stupider than a building. But, I think it'll go up for bid anyway on how it
Right.
goes, so.
Right.
There's other options. There's a steel building company that, does a steel frame. Then you got the inside to fix up and finish off. So there's wood, I would like to see a ground level building, so you don't have ramps and porches, because that's just maintenance, and handicap accessible you gotta have.
Right.
And the less lift you gotta have, the better off you are. So more ground level, the better. Anything else?
When you have lifts and things, they need maintenance eventually.
Well, that all needs maintenance. And
So if you don't have, that you need that, you're.
it's the same thing with your decking and stuff. That all is maintenance. If it's concrete, that needs maintenance, but after years. So, I mean, that's the other advantage to it, we're getting around it. So is there anything else?
How much tax money are we talking to be coming off the books over a course of 20 years?
The bigger building is 2,600 square feet. You're gonna be looking at probably a $500,000 building project, which we have probably 150,000 of it, to get a lot of the legwork and stuff going with it, So there's gonna be a finance of it, there's no doubt.
No, I'm talking about over a course of 20 years,
If the
tax
town,
money coming.
if the town was to take over the site.
Right, bought the
instead
site,
of as a
over,
private-
how much tax money is the town and village losing and the school? That's what I'm asking.
Right. Well, I don't know what it's assessed at right now. I guess would that be a viable figure to go by?
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean, I haven't thought about that, to be honest with you. You know, no matter if we buy or whatever land, it's gonna come off tax roll.
Right, right.
We buy it, or
regardless,
the village buys it and puts the building up.
Right,
Whoever it is, you know, if the school buys something and puts it up,
yeah.
it comes off the tax roll too. I can't believe it's assessed too high right now. I really don't know. Jim is here and Chris is here, and I'm not sure if it's something that, you know, should be brought up or not. You know, this is one of the probably lesser parcels in the town, I would think, in the village.
What's the size of the lot?
It actually goes all the way to High Street, right? High Street?
It's kind of more than an acre, it's narrow, it goes way up, it goes way up the hill.
Oh, okay.
But the town's not gonna buy it all,
Right, the
right?
thought process would be to just open up the front portion that would be basically like the back of the garage,
So it'd be
maybe
subdivided.
an acre.
So it'd be like subdivided then?
Yeah, maybe an acre.
That is the initial, that's the initial plan, yes. Yeah, we'll buy like the front 2 acres, 2.5 acres, whatever in the front. The old garage, the old Bradley garage, just, you know, give you a buffer behind that. And then that actually is where I think it starts getting wet, is behind it.
Right.
So that wouldn't be a bad thing to keep out of that.